Welcome back to another video of A Legal Studies Teacher Reads the News. This is going to be another one for consumers option. That's what my class is doing next, so you're going to see a lot of these videos popping up, but I'll continue to find videos for crime, for human rights, for family studies, and anything else that finds my interest, and I'll pop them up as well. This one's by Dominic Powell, April 22nd. The ACCC directs petrol stations to pass on record low oil prices. So what's happening here? So the ACCC, the consumer watchdog, whoa, emojis. Sorry, bumped the mouse there. That was exciting. The ACCC, if we look it up, something that you really need to know if you're doing the consumer option. So the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission. There's Rod Sims. He's the guy that's in charge of it. If you look up about, the government wants to know my location. Okay. Always click on about. If you're seeing something in legal studies and you're not sure what it is, go to the website, look it up. There's usually like a small paragraph where they just tell you as clearly as possible what they do. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission is an independent Commonwealth statutory authority. All right, so when you find things like statutory authorities, you look down here and you go, oh, okay, so we've got kind of federal and state government organisations whose role is to enforce the Competition and Consumer Act 2010 and a range of additional legislation promoting competition, fair trading, and regulating national infrastructure. That's how you know it's a federal government organisation for the benefit of all Australians. It's talking about consumers there. Okay, so the ACCC is someone you need to know. You're going to see them pop up time and time again if you're doing consumers as an option. So what's happening here? The Consumer Watchdog has directed petrol retailers to pass on the full benefit of record low oil prices to motorists, warning them against using coronavirus as an excuse to increase their already heightened profits. Okay, usually when you're reading an article, the very first paragraph is simply a broad summary of what's happened. That should give you the straight up, this is it. Then they go into more detail. Low demand for fuel due to the coronavirus pandemic has sent global oil markets into turmoil with a supply glut, that meaning there's too much of it, a glut is a huge amount, driving crude oil prices into the negative for the first time, trading as low as negative US $40 a barrel. That is incredible. That is something that has never happened before. Basically, what's happened is there's so little use for oil, and people are producing oil still, and they couldn't decide how much to the OPEC nations that produce it. They couldn't agree how much to cut it. They've cut it by, I believe, 10 million barrels a day. That's nowhere near enough. The demand has dropped by 20 million barrels. And America especially is in trouble because they're producing shale oil. So the other type of oil that you're producing, you can put on ocean liners, et cetera, but shale oil is all produced on land. And so the problem is they have nowhere to store it. So all these people have, on the futures market, purchased oil in 3 months' time, betting that the oil price is going to be more, and it's not. They've put all this money into it, and they're absolutely stuffed. So what they're doing is just trying to sell to other people the futures oil that they've purchased in 3 months' time. And they're sitting there thinking, there's no way, we don't even know where to store this oil that we're supposedly buying. So that's why it's gone into negative. They're literally paying people to get off this futures market off their hands. Since the beginning of the year, overall crude oil prices have decreased by US $50 a barrel. So US 50 down to negative 40. This decrease has been reflected in Australian wholesale, so the guys that buy at the petrol stations, prices, but has not fully flowed through to the petrol browsers. Browsers, that's supposed to be Bowsers. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission warned on Wednesday. While wholesale petrol prices have dropped 50 cents per litre since the start of the year, average petrol prices in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth have fallen only 45 cents per litre. The average metropolitan price is at 97.7 cents per litre, according to RACV. In the larger Australian capital cities, petrol retailers took too long to pass on the savings from the rapid drop in international oil prices, and this does not reflect well on them, ACCC Chairman Rod Sims said. So if you think about it, if their price drops by 30%, and they wait a week, a day, 2 days to pass that saving on. Every hour that they wait, they're making more profit. That's what he's saying. These guys are waiting and waiting. They're charging us heaps more for the petrol because they're getting it a lot cheaper than they were. So the longer they wait, the more money they make, and he says it's not reflecting well on them. The drop in the crude oil price is good news for the Australian motorists. At this time, the Australian economy needs all the assistance it can get, and lower world crude oil prices are one of the few positives from current world events. However, major fuel retailers have warned against expecting cheap petrol prices, saying the coronavirus has cut demand by up to 50% in recent weeks, and sellers still have high operating costs such as transport, as well as paying the government's 41-cent fuel excise. Okay, so per litre, they're paying tax on their fuel of 41 cents. So for every single litre that goes into your tank, 41 cents of that goes straight away to the, to the government. That's how the government's saying. That's how they're making their money. That's how they're paying their tax. So these guys are saying, well, hang on a second. Sure, petrol's a lot cheaper, but we're still paying the guy that's operating the store the same price, and we're getting less money in. So we can't just drop it dollar for dollar, cent for cent with the wholesale price, because we're just not making anywhere near as much money. That's what they're saying. Regional petrol stations, along with retailers in Darwin and Canberra, were far less consistent in dropping prices, Mr. Sims said. Reduced competition in regional areas, so note that, reduced competition in regional areas can cause price changes to lag as much as 6 weeks behind capital city operators. Okay, so there's showing you the role that competition plays in consumer law. Better competition means better for the consumer. And when you've only got one petrol station, you can do that lag that I was talking about for even longer, 6 weeks longer. The ACCC advised motorists to shop around for the best price and send a strong message to the petrol stations that have not yet passed on the price decreases. It advised shoppers to use price comparison apps and websites to ensure they are getting the best deal. Especially at this difficult time, retailers must not take advantage of the situation to increase their profits, but should pass on savings to motorists, Mr. Sims said. That's him there. Looks like the head of the ACCC, doesn't he? The ACCC also released the findings of its latest report into the petrol industry, which found profits for major petrol retailers and station operators such as BP, Caltex, Coles, Woolworths and 7-Eleven have jumped significantly in recent years. In 2017 to 2018, net profits across all, so that's after taxes, across all fuel products, convenience store and non-fuel services were $616 million. A record high $333 million of that was made on petrol products alone, representing a 3 cent per litre net profit. So every $1.43 I pay or every 97.9 cents I pay, they are making 3 cents per litre. This is almost double the average 1.6 per litre made by petrol stations from 2008 to 2014. Okay, so for the 6 years previous, they've been making 1.6. It's jumped, it's doubled. That's incredible. 60% of petrol profits were made on premium fuel, which Mr. Sims said had a significantly higher profit margin. In other words, they make more from every litre of that than they do from the other things. Convenience store sales brought in 37% of total net profits. Drivers who have the option can save money by resisting the temptation of convenience foods at petrol stations and using regular unleaded petrol, although motorists should follow their car manufacturer's advice, Mr. Sims said. Okay, so there's Mr. Sims. Obviously, very, very few times has he on a hot afternoon walked past that big fridge with the amazing amount of 2 for 1 or 2 for $7 deals for Gatorade or whatever it is, or meal deals where it's like a mint patty plus a milk plus a sandwich, etc., for $6 or all that stuff. But he's saying that's one of the reasons why people are getting ripped off, those net profits. So what's happening here? What can we talk about when it comes to consumer option? Well, this is an example of the effectiveness of legal and non-legal responses in achieving justice for consumers. So non-legal responses, all right, it's not against the law for these guys to do this if they're lagging or if they're not passing on the profits. But one of the things that we can do is kick up a stink about it. And this is what's happened. The ACCC has directed them. They've used the media, okay? They've used the media in order to put pressure on these petrol retailers to pass on the whole profit. That's how a similar thing happens with mortgages. When interest rates go down, straight away the government jumps on the media, does a couple of interviews and says the big banks should pass on those the drops. That's basically using a non-legal response to try and achieve justice for consumers. For thinking about it, a couple of other things you want to think about in relation to this. We've got, where are we? Awareness and self-help. So this idea of, they've said here, well, you should go and try and find it. So where are we? The ACCC advised motorists to shop around for the best price, send a strong message to the stations that have not yet addressed it. It advised shoppers to use price comparison apps and websites to ensure they're getting the best deal. So awareness and self-help. You've also got federal government organisations, the ACCC, stepping in for the consumer. Remember, they're trying to achieve justice, promoting competition, fair trading, and regulating national infrastructure. So really those two, that's what we're seeing here. Promoting competition within petrol stations and fair trading. It costs you less, you should be reducing it. Okay, so there's just a couple of ways that you can talk about this article and this issue of petrol stations and of COVID-19 causing this drop in oil prices, and how that shows the ACCC going into bat for consumers.